Hey, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on your time zone. Appreciate everyone taking time to learn a little bit more about Vivid Reports, specifically how to turn your ERP data into actionable insights with Vivid Reports. We have some friends on the call with us. I just wanted to take a second to introduce who we have on the sa.global site. My name is Andrew Tusky. I am our account executive for the SMB practice, really focused on BC CRM. We do some work with GP as well. Also joined by Jonathan Crowell, who is our product lead. Certainly, we'll be here to answer some questions if you have any regarding BC, but you are in great hands with Christine, who will walk you through Vivid Reports and share how you can utilize your ERP data even better. So Christine, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you to sa.global for inviting us here for this webinar. So again, my name is Christine Boisvert, and I'm part of technical sales. I'm a report trainer here at Vivid Reports. So for the next hour, what I'm going to do is we're going to give you a full demonstration of our software and explain a little bit of where Vivid Reports fits, what can it do, where can it help save time, help you be more efficient, etc. So what I've got planned is just a handful of slides for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll jump right into the demo. If you have any questions, feel free to use the GoToWebinar chat window. I'm happy to answer any questions along the way, and I'll keep an eye on that throughout the presentation. So who we are. Vivid Reports, we've been around since 1999. We've been doing this a long time. We're all about financial reporting and budgeting. We integrate with the entire Dynamics suite of products, including GP, Business Central, D365 F&O, SL, NAV. One of the things that I always like to mention during this presentation is just customer service. You know, Vivid Reports really shines on implementation, training, just being responsive to our clients. Just because the implementation is complete, that doesn't mean the relationship stops there. We have a support mailbox that we monitor all the time, and we really strive towards replying to all of our support questions within an hour. And most of the times, we're able to resolve the question right away. So Vivid sells two products. So I'm going to be focusing today strictly on our CPM product. CPM stands for Corporate Performance Management, and it's all about financial reporting. It's all about the general ledger, accounts, segments, reporting trees, drilling down, etc. We also have a budgeting and forecasting module, which allows you to take all that heavy lifting that you have to do with your budget spreadsheets today and just really streamline it. Make it more efficient. Building those budget spreadsheets shouldn't be so time consuming. Consolidating all that information, I'm sure today if you're using Excel, it's very time consuming. So Vivid can really help streamline that and really help you save some time when compiling your budgets. Just to explain what Vivid Flex is an operational reporting tool. It's similar to SQL reporting services or Crystal reports, but it allows you to build ad hoc reports. So it doesn't necessarily need to be off of financial information. It can be customer information, sales, inventory, manufacturing, etc. Both of our products are 100% Excel based. So we live and breathe in Excel. Our Vivid CPM product, again, is fully integrated with Business Central, with GP, etc. The beauty about both of our products is that essentially it's one platform to do both financial and operational reports. And that, of course, that platform is Microsoft Excel. So when we talk about implementation, our implementation for Vivid CPM is typically very short, because we're not necessarily spending any time during the implementation on making those cosmetic changes to your reports, like underline boxes, shading, etc. Typically, those end users will already know that right out of the gates when we're starting our first training session. We usually budget about 8 hours of training for financial reporting and 8 hours of training for budgeting. We record all of our training sessions, and we allow you to log on to our portal and download those recordings. Those are really useful tools, and I get that feedback a lot from our clients that, you know, I forgot how to do something. I went back and looked at the recording, and it went through the training session, went through all of those steps. These are just some of the features that are included with our Vivid CPM product. I'll be going through all of these during the demo. So control panel, reporting trees, etc. You might be familiar with Management Reporter. I don't know if, you know, it's worth mentioning that we are a full replacement for Management Reporter. We have powerful drill down capabilities. We have automation features that allow you to build report packages and distribute them to your stakeholders. We also have a web application. So if you need to distribute a lot of reports to a lot of people, perhaps the web application might be a good alternative. It does not require Excel. It does not require anything installed on the workstation. It's simply like an intranet website where the users can log in, their reports are published to their accounts, and they're able to see the reports, refresh, and drill down right away. So with that, when you're publishing reports, you want to make sure that the appropriate security has been put in place, so users can only see what they've been given access to. So we have all of those features and functionality. Here's a quick screenshot of what our web application looks like. Again, it can be used on any device. So if you have any Mac computers or iPads or Android devices, you can use our web application on all those platforms. So our budgeting module essentially allows users to take control of their budget spreadsheets. So when clients are coming to us and they're looking for a budget solution, it's because their spreadsheets have gotten out of control. They're linked from one to another. They break easily. They're very hard to consolidate. And then you need to get it in a format to get it back into your accounting system. Well, with Vivid, you have the benefit of continuing to use Excel, but we take away all those challenges that comes with using Excel. So we can refresh that information automatically. So if you need to show your actuals, you want to capture a forecast for the last 3 months of the year and then an annual budget, Vivid can refresh all of your actuals automatically. And then you can prepare the forecast values and the budget values to be in a state where you can push those values back into the Vivid environment. You can replicate your budget master input sheet across as many departments as you like very quickly. We keep track of all the changes that have been made to the budget. We allow you to attach your notes or your assumptions to the budget. And there are also features that you can distribute your budgets based on certain drivers or certain trends. So you can calculate a budget based on statistical information like FTEs, square feet, etc. Or you can allocate your budget based on your seasonalities. You may be busier in the summer versus winter. You may want to spread out your budget accordingly based on those trends. So I'll be going through that all during the demo. I also like to use a term called vividizing existing reports. That's really used heavily during the implementation. So for example, what I'll always do during our first training session is we'll ask the clients to bring a sample income statement to our first training session. Usually it's in Excel. So it has all the bolding, the shading, the labels, the totals, perhaps a variance calculation. All of that is essentially basic Excel functions. So vividizing an existing report just allows us to go through row by row, and we're activating Vivid on those rows where you want to pull a GL balance or a GL roll-up of a number of accounts into a balance. And then we'll vividize the columns. So we'll have an actual column. We may have a budget column. Then we'll have a variance column. Then we may have a last year's actual column, etc. So that really helps speed up the implementation because you're using something that you already have. It's already built. So some of the things, these are just some of the things that come with your first Vivid license. So multiple companies, if you have multiple companies set up in Business Central, that's all, whether you have one company or 10 or 20 companies, we can bring all of those companies into Vivid. Multi-currency reporting, so perhaps you're an international company and you may need to report in different currencies. We have all of that as well. Report check, report automation, etc. One of the things that I always like to mention, getting back to our Vivid being a very customer-centric company, is we include 8 hours of support every year with your annual subscription. So we have very few clients that ever reach that 8 hours. But we really feel confident with our product. It's very stable, it's very low maintenance. But if you do have questions, certainly do not hesitate to give us a call or send us an email. We're more than happy to help you with those questions on things that may not happen often. You need to add a new department to your reporting tree. You've added a new GL account and you need to incorporate that account onto your reports. Those are just things that don't happen often and they're easily forgotten. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. So from a technical perspective, Vivid is a data warehouse. So it does require Microsoft SQL Server. That SQL Server can either be on-premise, if you already have an environment. It could be in the cloud, if you already have an environment that you can put it on in the cloud. Or we also offer hosting services. So we can store the Vivid database for you in our hosting environment. And once that SQL Server has been set up, we will establish a connection, a secured connection to the Business Central data that we're looking for. So we're looking for the GL accounts, segments, the dimensions, the transactions, etc. We will pull what we need into the data warehouse. So when you're refreshing a Vivid report in Excel, you're refreshing off of the data warehouse. There's a scheduled synchronization that occurs between Business Central and Vivid. Normally, we'll set that to run every hour. However, within the hour, if you do need to sync the data sooner than within an hour, you can trigger that synchronization at any given time. It's very fast. We're talking about, less than a minute for it to run. Okay, and Vivid really, we're really proud on how our software performs. We've worked with a lot of companies with a lot of data. So I've worked with companies that have had millions and millions of transactions per fiscal year. I've worked with companies that have had hundreds of thousands of GL accounts, and Vivid performs very well. It is very efficient. We don't want our customers to be sitting there and waiting for the report to refresh.
So Christine, on that note, how does Vivid work with multiple environments, especially like with multiple localizations, like per country?
Okay, great question. So Vivid will pull in the functional currency of the company. So if you have a US company, all transactions will be brought over into US dollars. If you have a Canadian operation, they'll be brought over into Canadian and Canadian funds. If you need to perform a consolidation, so you have to set up an income statement, a consolidated income statement for both those companies, and you need to translate the Canadian funded company into US dollars. Vivid has its own translation tables within the application. You can set up a spot rate, an average rate. You can set up different exchange rates for budgets, perhaps a different exchange rate for your retained earnings. So Vivid's very flexible on which exchange rates you use on which type of data and which GL accounts. So when you're refreshing a consolidated report, you're adding both companies into one single report, and you're translating the Canadian company into US dollars based on the currency setup.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. So this is a sample report where you would use both our Vivid CPM product and Vivid Flex. So the top report is essentially pulling from GL or dimension information. This is refreshable. This would be coming from Business Central. And then down below here, these are your operating measures. This is using Vivid Flex, where you could be pulling in units shipped, orders processed, etc. So it's non-GL information and could be coming from any source. From if you have another operational piece of software that is using SQL Server, you can set up a connection to that SQL data and build a custom report. If there are any MR or FRX users out there and you're looking for an alternative, I do want to mention that we have a conversion utility that can take those row formats and reporting trees and build finished reports directly in Excel using Vivid. When you're looking at the cost of Vivid or you'd like a quote on the software, we'll always ask you, how many named licenses do you need? And what kind of licenses do you need? We offer a number of different licensing options that each have their own price point. So at a minimum, you do need one report builder. And then after that, you can determine, do you want to share these Vivid reports with any of your stakeholders and give them the ability to drill down? If you built a Vivid report and you want to share it with someone just as a static spreadsheet, they do not need a Vivid license. The only time you need a Vivid license is if you want to give those recipients the ability to drill down. So they want to look at the supporting information, which GL accounts are rolled up onto this particular row on my income statement. What are the transactions that are tied to this particular GL account balance? That's where you can look at either a Vivid basic viewer license or an analyzer. And I'll explain during the demo the difference between the two. The analyzer is essentially what I call a power viewer. It can just drill down in using a variety of different windows, looking at trend analysis, variance analysis, etc. Whereas a basic viewer only has one window that they can use when they're drilling down. And after that, we'll always ask you, do you want to add the budgeting module? It's an add-on module to the financial reporting piece. So when you're looking at a budget builder license, it is inclusive of financial reporting. When we do our implementation, when you're going through the budgeting implementation, you must go through the financial reporting training first. Well, because that is the core foundation of Vivid. And then we can add on the budgeting piece later on, or we can go through the implementation from A to Z right at the beginning. Okay, before I jump into the demonstration, are there any other questions?
I think we're good.
Awesome. Can you see my Excel screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so to run Vivid, once the server piece is installed, it is a small Excel add-in that gets installed. You see I have Vivid CPM. We support terminal server. We support VPN access. A lot of people are working from home, myself included. So Vivid is very scalable. It can work in all kinds of different environments. As far as the Excel version, I believe we go back to even Excel 2007. So we support all versions of Excel, all versions of SQL Server. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. These logins are typically managed and maintained by the finance team. The finance team, we want them to have full ownership of their financial statements and full ownership of the software, so they can determine who will be able to see what if you're rolling out viewer licenses. So once I'm logged in, you see this is our entire toolbar. You have different sections of the toolbar. This building section, only report builders have access to that. This budgeting section, only users that have budgeting capabilities will have access to that. And then this is my analysis section so that I can drill down and look at the financial results in a variety of different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and click main. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this particular report. So this is what we call our file list. It's a nice optional way to centralize your reports, making sure everybody's using the same version of the report. You can see here, I have a variance column, which is a basic Excel formula. I have a sum, that's also a basic Excel formula. But if you look over here, these are coming from Vivid. I do not store the formulas in the individual Excel cells. That is a key difference between Vivid and other reporting solutions. You don't have to maintain all those individual cells. That would be, in my mind, that would be high maintenance. We have one formula for the entire row and one formula for the entire column. And I'll get into that in a moment. If I click on Control Panel, these are my prompts. I've attached a reporting tree to this spreadsheet. This is my reporting tree. This is set up during the initial implementation. You have security tied to this reporting tree, and these are tied to different areas of your chart of accounts. They could be department code, they could be a location code, they could be a dimension set up in Business Central. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New York State, and I want to run the report for the month of June. These prompts are all customizable. You can prompt for a database, a currency, a period, a year, and a department or a reporting tree. So I'll go ahead and refresh. So now you can see here, actually I'm going to use the month of July. There's a couple of things that I want to drill into. So if you look at these, see how these are static values. You can share this spreadsheet after you've refreshed it. You can share it with an unlimited number of end users. They do not need a Vivid license. Now, if you want to be able to drill down, that's where you do need a Vivid license. So if I'm clicking on this 34,679, I'm going to click on this drill down button up top here. So if I click drill down, there's the roll up of the GL accounts that make up the total of 34,679. If I click on any of these accounts, these are the transactions that make up that total. I can see all the transactions all at once. If I click this button, there's 34,679 for all these accounts. There's 34,679. It's 27 transactions. I can export this to Excel if I need to do any kind of reconciliation. I get a lot of clients that do that. You'll notice when I click these other cells, see how the window just automatically refreshes. I want to drill into an AP invoice. So I've got an AP invoice here. I can click this little button down here and bring up the image, the scanned image of the invoice. Now, we integrate with a number of different third-party document imaging solutions or paperless AP solutions. So as long as we can establish a connection from the transaction in Business Central to wherever the image is stored, that's all we need. We just need that link or a combination of the vendor ID with the vendor invoice number. That brings us to this particular image. Okay. All right, some of these other windows. So that was the drill down window. So all Vivid users, even a Vivid viewer, has access to this window. A Vivid analyzer, remember I called it that power viewer, they can do everything that I've shown you so far, but there's additional drill down capabilities. So I really like this drill across. I call that my trend analysis. So if I click on drill across, you'll see that I've got 11,221 for the month of July. There's my cursor. It's on 11,221 for the month of July. This is what I did in June, in May, in April, etc. This year versus last year. If I've got 10, 20 years of history, I can add all of that into this window, into my matrix. I can add budget or forecast information, etc. I can even change this to a timeline view. So if I click on this button here, it toggles it. So how have I done since the beginning of time against this particular expense? I can toggle it back and forth. Now it's back to matrix view. I can export this to Excel, and I can also drill down into the GL accounts and the transactions directly from this window. Okay, you don't need a license to Business Central. You don't need a license to your accounting system to be able to do what I'm showing you here. You just need a Vivid license.
So quick question. So, this is the desktop version. Does it also work with the online version of Excel as well?
In order to build reports, you do need a desktop version of Vivid. If you're going to refresh reports in Excel, it does require a desktop version of Excel. If you want to look at the web, we can also look at the Vivid's web viewer, where you'd be publishing your reports via the web, which wouldn't require Excel at all.
Got it. So that's a pretty good option for folks who are just looking to view it potentially if you know, they don't have a full license to the desktop.
That's right.
Awesome.
All right, so I went through the drill down, the drill across. Let's look at drill compare. So if you look at this cell here, I've got a $455 variance. I'm using Excel conditional formatting that if the variance is greater than 300 or less than negative 300, highlighted in orange. If I change this to 1,000, you can see it's no longer highlighted. So you can start really making your reports a little more interactive, a little more dashboardy, KPIs, things like that, because Excel comes out of the box with a ton of great chart functionality. But getting back to this here, if I'm refreshing a highly summarized report, you have total sales, total COGS, gross profit, and you're comparing it this year versus last year, and you have a variance. Well, how do you know, which department, which account number is creating that variance? So what you can do is if you click on drill compare, so I'm comparing column E with column F. So I'm breaking down column E with column F. There's the breakdown of my variance. I can sort this based on the variance, and then I can click on the actuals and look at the transactions. So you can really get into those variances and do some analysis. Okay, some other sample reports that I like to show. Here's one, it's a 12-month trend report. This is coming from Vivid. This is just a basic Excel line chart. Okay, so if I click refresh, these values are coming essentially from Business Central or your ERP. You click on these, you can drill down, you can look at the accounts and the transactions. But as information gets posted, you refresh this report, this chart will automatically get refreshed as well. Something like this. Again, a 12-month trend report. Let's refresh that. This percent column is just an Excel formula. I've just created an if statement so that I don't see the divide by zero error. But this is all coming from Vivid. Now I'm going to get into how to build these reports or how are they maintained. So let's unhide some columns here. Now you'll notice these rows are the exact same rows that I used on this first tab. I want to make a change to this row. I've added a new account. I need to expand my GL account range, or I want to change the name. I don't want to call it consulting anymore. I want to call it something else. These comments are tied to this area of the toolbar. I'm going to go into Filter Builder. Think of Filter Builder as your filing cabinet. In your filing cabinet, you're going to have file folders. We call that categories. I've got a file folder here for an income statement. There are 35 rows, potential rows on an income statement. Notice that consulting is highlighted in yellow. Over here is the expression that's tied to consulting. I'm saying S1, segment 1 of my chart of accounts is between this number and this number. If I click test, I'll just go ahead and click test here. This tells me that potentially I could have 38 accounts that are rolled up into this filter. And you can scroll through that. You can see that I'm adding that range of accounts. I need to expand this range. So I'm going to expand that to that number. And I'll click test. So now I have 57 accounts, and I can see I'm adding those 3 accounts. If I add any accounts in between this range, they're automatically going to be included. If they fall outside of that range, you have to go in and adjust your expression. Now I'm going to put in my initials here so you can see what happens on the label. Let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to close that. Click refresh. Look what happens here. If I click refresh, that consulting is going to include my initials, and this value changed because I expanded my range of accounts. Now let's go into this tab. Here, let's go back to here. I did not touch or do anything on this spreadsheet. I'm simply going to click refresh and look what happens. See how this number changed and my initials now show up here. So that's where I was getting back to Vivid being low maintenance. You make the change once and it rolls down to all of your reports immediately. Okay, so it's very similar to Management Reporter. For those who may have previously used Management Reporter, if you think of a row format, you make the change on the row format, and then all your catalogs, your reporting catalogs would have been updated automatically. Other sample reports, you can, again, I'm using these same rows. I click refresh, but now I've got my locations across the top. Okay, so you can see there's my initials. I click control panel, and maybe I want to see, year-to-date March for fiscal 2022, but maybe I want to see the budget. Not actuals, but I want to see budget information. You can set up different prompts. Remember, I said these control panels, it's all customizable, and that's something we go through during training. So a couple other things I want to point out before I jump into budgeting. We have automation features where you can build packages. So perhaps you have an income statement. You want to replicate that income statement across 25 departments, and you want a tab for every single department. Well, you're not going to set up one huge workbook with 25 tabs. You're going to set up one workbook with one tab, and then you're going to run the automation job, and it's automatically going to create all those 25 tabs. The benefit of doing that is if you need to make a change to your master sheet, you have to add a new row, you have to add a new column, you make it once, then you rerun your automation job, and it's going to update 25 or 50 different departments automatically. You can set those reports to email. It triggers an email right away. You can set up, add a balance sheet plus an income statement, or you have, a summary income statement plus a detailed income statement times 25 different departments. You can do all that as well using automation. We also have a really cool report check functionality, so you can check for missing or duplicate accounts. During training, we also go through and just suggest some different tips and tricks, some control totals, some balance check totals, just to make sure that you have all of your accounts included on your report. But if you don't, if you're out of balance, then we would use this window to check which account am I missing, or perhaps I've duplicated an account on my report. I'm just going to pause right here and check to see if there are any questions on financial reporting before I jump into budgeting. Okay. All right. So with budgeting, so we're going to kind of change our mindset a little bit. Now we'll be talking about it's budget season. You need to prepare your budget input sheets because you're doing everything manually in Excel today, and you have to start preparing those budget input sheets. And today they're like massive sheets. You need to link them from one to another so that you can consolidate the totals. You can see where you're at during your budget process. And then you have another massive spreadsheet to get it in a format so you can import it back into the accounting system. So the benefit of using Vivid, first of all, it's a really cost-effective add-on. Second of all, let Vivid do all the heavy lifting. So this section is your actuals. Okay, so when you click refresh, that's automatically going to be updated. Okay, so that's really powerful information. When you're doing your budgets, it's really nice to see what are your trends. Okay, it's really nice to see that you can drill down into the actuals, look at how this is rolled up, look at the transactions. So you can remember, oh yeah, I go to that conference every year and it's in every September, I need to budget for it. Okay. Then these areas in yellow, I've just shaded those yellow just as an indication to the end user that, hey, I want you to enter information in these columns and these columns. Okay. So I'm running my budget. This is my budget input sheet for New York City. I'm going to go ahead and just focus on the budget input, the annual budget, but the functionality is exactly the same for the forecast. You can preload a forecast with actuals. You can copy last year's budget into this year's budget. You can also lock a budget so no further changes can be made to it. So now when I'm starting to enter my budget amount, I can simply enter a value. These can be formulas. These can be driven off statistical information. These can be driven off a completely separate report. Vivid does not care how you come up with this value in this cell. It's just going to check, is there a value there? Then what you're going to do is on the budgeting menu side, or on the menu bar right here, you're going to click this button, Commit. When you click Commit, it does a whole bunch of validation. It checks, is the budget open? Do you have access to it? Does the GL account exist? So now when I click on Review, you'll see there's one cell ready to be committed because these other cells had already been committed. If I click on Review, it tells me I'm going to be saving $2,500 into this GL account, into this fiscal year, this period, into this data type, and that's the value. So now I'll go and click Commit. It pushes that value into the Vivid database. I can add assumptions or my notes. So I can add notes over here in this comments column, or I can go into here, go into assumptions, and just say here, testing notes with sa.global. I can attach supporting schedules as well. And these notes are really important because 6 months down the road, when you're looking at a completely different report and income statement, and you drill into that budget column, you're going to see the notes that you entered at the time of budget entry. So I do encourage you end users to put in those assumptions. Okay, let's change this value to 4,800 and let's commit it. If I go back and look at the audit, it tells me that I originally saved it as 2,500, and then a minute later I changed it to 4,800, and it came from this spreadsheet. We keep an audit entirely of where this information came from. All right, let's look at the distributor. This is a great way to quickly populate your budget. So I'm on my New York City surveying line item. I can drill into my actuals. You can see these values are there. They're grayed out, but you can drill into the accounts and the transactions directly from this window. I can populate my forecast. Let's populate the budget. So you can see I entered $2,400 annual amount, and it did an even distribution by default. If I click on this graph, these are my seasonalities, my actuals. There's my flat $200 a month. I want to change the calculation of my budget to match my seasonalities. So I click on the little calculator. Now you can see my budget amounts are following the same peaks and valleys as my actuals. Now I can see, might be a little bit under budget. Let's increase that budget amount by 12%. Click the little calculator. Now it's more in line. Click Apply. Notice over here, it populated those budget values. Click the down arrow. Now I'm on my freight revenue. So let's put in $12,000, and then we can calculate it, etc. Okay. So I've populated my budget amounts. Let's commit this. All right. I want to do the exact same thing, but for a different department or a different location. So now if you didn't have Vivid, building this spreadsheet without Vivid would be a lot of work. But with Vivid, I click on Control Panel, and notice here, there's New York City. I want to fill in Buffalo because I'm the New York State Territory Manager. I'm going to click Buffalo, click Refresh. Now it refreshes all the actuals all at once. And now I can start populating. See how these actuals changed? Now I can start populating my budget values for Buffalo. So let's commit that. So then you in finance, you want to see, well, what's my total? I want to look at a budget summary report. So I can take this exact same report, or I can have a completely different report. And I want to tell it, well, show me the roll-up. So I'm just going to go ahead and click New York State, click Refresh. Look what happens here. If I click on this 6,000 here and click drill down, there's the 4,800 that I entered for New York City. There's 1,200 for Buffalo. If I hover over that note, there's the assumption that I entered for New York City. Testing notes with sa.global. So the consolidations are seamless. It's automatic. The key with the budgeting process is to enter and commit the budget values at the most detailed level, and then let Vivid do the heavy lifting as far as consolidations. Okay, there's one last piece I want to show in budgeting, and that's what we call budget transactions. So perhaps you need to capture more information about your budget. So, being able to enter these values is great, but I want to set up a detailed list of my travel budget, conferences, marketing budget, things like that. If you notice over here on my commercial construction, I've got my sample data here is a construction company, and I've got a commercial construction revenue line item. Notice it's gray. It's not yellow. And that's because that row's been deactivated. You cannot budget on this spreadsheet on this row. But I do want to make it refreshable because I want to include it in my totals. But over here, I've got a separate tab called Budget Transactions. There's my commercial construction revenue line item, and I've got some rows here to enter transactions or lists. So I want to list the projects that I'm anticipating closing. So I'm going to build a new library. It's at 555 Main Street. I'm going to kick off the project in January. It's going to continue in February, and it wraps up in March. Okay, so I'm saving these values at the GL level, but I'm also saving these transactions. So let's go ahead and commit that. So it's committing both the 3 budget values, but these 4 transactions as well. Let's commit that. Let's go back to this original budget spreadsheet. Let's refresh this, and you're going to see these values change. Remember, I don't have any formulas. See, I don't have any formulas in those cells. It just automatically refreshed it. Let's click on drill down, and let's look at those budget transactions. You can see I've populated additional budget information using budget transactions. Okay. One last thing I want to show is our web viewer. So let me minimize this here and just open up Google Chrome. So we support all browsers. We support iPads, Android devices. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this link here. This is just a shortcut that I have, and it uses IIS. You do need an IIS server, or if we're hosting it for you, we will supply that. And I'll just go ahead and log in. So it's going to have the same look and feel as Excel. It just does not require Excel. Immediately when you log into Vivid, this file list populates. This is how we publish the reports. This is how the finance team will publish the reports to this particular web viewer. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this report. It's going to look familiar. It's the same report that I used on my other demo. Okay, so it's got the same look and feel as Excel. Look, notice down below here, I have all the tabs that are included in that workbook, or I can click on all the tabs here. I can click Control Panel. And again, I can pick New York State for the month of May, click Refresh, and it populates those values. I can click on any of these values, click Drill Down, and there's the roll-up of the accounts and the transactions as well. So again, it has the same look and feel as the Excel client. It's got the same features as well. You can take this report if you wanted to. You can print it off. You can even export it to Excel if you wanted to. So this is a great way when you have a lot of users that need to look at their reports. This is a really good way to centralize it. It's low maintenance. You don't have to install Vivid or have Excel installed on their workstations. You just publish the report to their login, and they open up Google Chrome, go to the shortcut for Vivid, and they can log in. That's part of training. We'll set up, once the implementation and the reports are complete and they're ready to be published, we would schedule a separate training session just for the viewers. We would teach them how to log in, how to open up their report, refresh, and drill down.
So Christine, for uncommon report formats, so like someone who wants to see revenue and expenses side by side in columns, instead of like a more traditional income statement, you know, does it still translate just as well when you're going from Excel to the web client?
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, we want to make it as seamless as possible. So, you know, and like I said, our web viewers should have the same look and feel as Excel, but it just does not require Excel.
Excellent.
All right. So that's what I wanted to cover. Are there any other questions? If not, I'm just going to bring up there's our contact information. If you would like to schedule a demo, or if you'd like some pricing information, feel free to reach out to either myself, Jonathan, or Andrew, and we'd be happy to assist you. I believe today's recording or today's session was recorded, so all attendees will be given a link to download this recording.
Yep, that is correct. Yeah, so as Christine mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a ring. Christine and her team are great to work with, and hopefully, as you've seen, the product is really exceptional and very, very easy to use. So unless there are any other questions or any other comments, we'll go ahead and wrap the call.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you all.